Hi everybody. This is our reading video over oranges. You should have already read the poem to yourself. If you haven't, please do that now before you get into me reading it and then the YouTube video of somebody else reading it. After you read it personally, please make sure you answer the questions I posted in Schoology for reading 1. And then after you listen to me read the second time, you'll go back and read or answer the questions for reading 2. And then finally, when you listen to the YouTube video version, answer the questions for reading 3. Let's go ahead and get started. Oranges by Gary Soto. The first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down with 2 oranges in my jacket. Really quick, brief pause, sorry. We talked yesterday in our notes about enjambment, and remember, enjambment is when a sentence continues on without stopping onto another line. So this is what that is here. So the first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down with 2 oranges in my jacket. That is all one sentence, but it is not all on the same line. So that's enjambment. December frost cracking beneath my steps, my breath before me, then gone. As I walked toward her house, the one whose porch light burned yellow, night and day, in any weather, a dog barked at me until she came out, pulling at her gloves, face bright with rouge. Rouge, guys, is like blush, so it's like the pink stuff that girls put on their cheeks to make them look rosy. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street across a used car lot and a line of newly planted trees, until we were breathing before a drugstore. We entered the tiny bell, bringing a sales lady down a narrow aisle of goods. I turned to the candies, tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in her eyes, a smile starting at the corners of her mouth, I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket, then an orange, and set them quietly on the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine, and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissing past, fog hanging like old coats between the trees, I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap the chocolate. I peeled my orange, that was so bright against the gray of December that from a distance someone might have thought I was making fire in my hands. Okay, so just a quick couple of things. I know with the other students that I've read this poem with, they had a couple of questions, especially about the ending. And with the ending, if you're confused, I want you to go back and either remember, or if you need to, look back at your notes about the different themes that we're going to be talking about in this poem. And they included love, sacrifice, kindness, and poverty. And we see all 4 of those themes just in this last little bit. So as far as love goes, he obviously cares a lot about this girl that he's taking on a date. And so he asks her what kind of chocolate she wants, right? He's trying to get her something and, to make her feel special. So that's the love aspect. As far as the sacrifice goes, he says that he only has a nickel in his pocket, but the chocolate she wants is a dime. So he is 5 cents short on what he needs to buy the candy for her. So instead of saying or telling her, no, you can't get that, why don't we find something we can both eat, right? He decides, I'm going to put a nickel and an orange on the counter, and hopefully the sales lady will let us get away with this. So that's the sacrifice there. Also, when he says, I released her hand to unwrap the chocolate and I peeled my orange. Again, he could have had her pick a cheaper candy so they both could have got something, but instead he let her get the more expensive item and he was fine just eating his orange, right? So that's the sacrifice portion. The kindness theme comes in when the sales lady lets him pay for the chocolate with the orange and the nickel. Obviously, she didn't have to do that. She could have told the kid to get out of her shop if he didn't have enough money to afford the candy that he wanted, but instead she understood, what was happening and wanted to be nice and let this kid pay for the chocolate in the only way that he could was with a nickel and an orange. So we see kindness there. And also obviously kindness with the fact that he's, wanting to buy this present for her, this piece of chocolate. And then finally we see poverty, obviously with the main character not having enough money to pay for the chocolate. And so that's where those 4 themes come in. And I hope that kind of gives you a better understanding of what's happening at the end of that poem. Okay, so go ahead and pause here. Go ahead and answer the questions that go along with the second reading. And then when you're finished, come back and listen to the rest of this video, which includes this super weird YouTube video. I am not going to show you the video because it's weird and awkward. I really just want you to listen to the poem being read. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
The first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down with 2 oranges in my jacket. December, frost cracking beneath my steps, my breath before me, then gone. As I walked toward her house, the one whose porch light burned yellow night and day in any weather, a dog barked at me, until she came out pulling at her gloves, face bright with rouge. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street, across a used car lot and a line of newly painted trees until we were breathing before a drugstore. We entered, the tiny bell bringing a saleslady down to a narrow aisle of goods. I turned to the candies, tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in her eyes, a smile starting at the corners of her mouth. I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket, then an orange, and set them quietly on the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissing past, fog hanging like an old coat between the trees. I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap the chocolate. I peeled my orange that was so bright against the gray of December that, from some distance, someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hands.
All right. Okay, so now that you've listened to the poem for the last time, go ahead and, well, first let's kind of talk about this. So I'm sure a lot of you, have been thinking, this doesn't sound like love. It's kind of stupid that he's buying her chocolate with an orange, or whatever else your other classmates that I see in person have said. I think I've heard the word simp, I don't know how many times, regardless, right? So this type of relationship, this date, may sound a little old-fashioned, and you have to remember when Gary Soto was born. So in the 50s, when he was 12, it would have been in the 60s, close to the 70s. So to him, like, this is what love looked like. You didn't, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, I feel that as far as your generation goes, love is very much sexualized for you. And what I mean by that is, just look at all the TikToks that you guys watch. All the young girls that are like showing all this skin and doing these provocative dance moves. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do those. Like, you do you. It's your prerogative, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm just saying, I think it kind of distorts your idea of what love is. And you also need to remember that this boy and girl are 12, right? They're young. And this type of love, or at this age at least, it's supposed to be sweet and innocent. It's not supposed to be anything crazy involved, or, like getting engaged, like Brandon and I, my fiance. It's not supposed to be like that. You're young. You're still figuring out what it is. So anyway, that's why this poem may sound a little outdated, because when, Gary was a kid, this is what you did with the person that you had a crush on. You didn't, make up TikTok dances and, try to get their attention with other means. It was very much just like, let's hold hands and walk around for a little bit, buy each other chocolate, little simple things. It's sweet and innocent. And so that's kind of why this poem is the way it is, right? Maybe it is a little old-fashioned. I don't know. Personally, I think it's cute. You don't have to agree with me, obviously. But anyway, go ahead and you can close out of the video now. It's over. Go ahead and answer those last couple of questions with the reading 3. And I will see you all during our Zoom call. Thanks, guys.